Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Michael informs his previous boss at Victor's office about his falling out with Kane, who is looking for a yes man. He maintains that it's their move and that the game is afoot. When Baldwin sees Jack enter, he is astounded. According to Jack, their antagonism has been superseded by a shared enemy. He hasn't yet consented to become allies, Victor sniffs. Jack advises him to speak with Michael, his advisor. Victor's lack of faith in Jack and Baldwin is evident. The two men try to persuade the Newman that, in this particular situation, cooperating is the best course of action. Victor. According to Jack, Jill will be visiting the area tomorrow. He is confident that she will assist them with Kane. He is reminded by Michael and Victor of her affection for Kane. Jack contends that she is unaware of Ashby's intentions. She will make him wait. Jack reminds them, and a debate breaks out. Kane is already halfway there after Chance passed away on her land. Michael worries that if Jill betrays Kane, he will feel alone. Victor clarifies that he will make a mistake and become exposed at that point. Startled, Jack asks the mustache whether he has changed his mind about joining forces. Will Kyle exacerbate the situation? Kyle keeps complaining to Claire in the park about hanging out with Holden, a player. Claire requires time to discover her identity and desires. What's not like that, he sneers at her and Holden. She retorts, it's none of your business what it's like. He finally stops talking after this. Kyle suggests that Claire is falling into a trap set by the slick and seductive Holden as they resume their argument. Claire makes fun of him and Audra in France and maintains that it's not a romantic getaway. Kyle is furious. Retaliation is at issue here. Excellent work, Claire, he cheers. Victor would be extremely pleased. Kyle. Claire claims that her ex is attempting to make her feel guilty about pursuing her desires. Claire recounts her early years for the umpteenth time when Kyle disputes it. Declaring that Holden is her buddy, she sets out to discover more about herself and live her life. Why can't you do that with me? Kyle says inanely. Claire asserts that she must live her life independently of him. As the situation worsens, Audra follows along and observes Claire snap at Kyle for deceiving her about his time in France. He should leave her alone because he is being hypocritically. Kyle yells at her for spending time alone with a man posing as her friend. He is accused of jealousy by Claire. It has to do with his ego. Audra YNR reminding Claire that she is naive, Kyle inquires as to whether Holden expressed interest in her. Do you know how you sound right now? Smirks Claire. Why are you being so blind? Yells Kyle. After telling him how much harm he has caused today, Claire stalks away. Audra smirks as she approaches Kyle. What is Lauren going to ask Nikki? Lauren tells Nikki that she needs her assistance at Crimson Lights. Has Victor reintroduced Michael? Does my husband's sudden employment with Kane stem from this? They discuss Kane's job offer to Baldwin and the distance between Michael and Victor. Lauren is certain that Ashby wants her husband to be held accountable for him. Why do you think Victor is involved? Asks Nikki. Although Lauren claims that Michael denied it, she is aware that he was lying. Nikki acknowledges that they could have a reason to get back together. Nikki Lauren. They discuss Victor's brutality against Michael, and Nikki compares the Baldwin to a third son, saying he treats Adam and Nick in the same manner. Lauren raises the temperature and rages that if Nikki does nothing and allows this to continue, she will be just as guilty as Victor. Nikki looks at her friend in disbelief. Nikki. Nikki is reminded by Lauren that Michael left Victor because he was fed up with his cruelty towards Jack. Nikki objects, pleading with Victor to stop harboring animosity towards the Abbott. She can't get him to change his mind. Should she leave him? She shares Lauren's affection for Michael. Nikki says the two unyielding guys are their fate, using the D word from Bold and Beautiful. Lauren begs Nikki to find out what's going on for her, saying that she's simply exhausted. Is Victor going to join Jack? Michael at Victor's office thinks Kane's AI might just be a pipe dream. Victor and Jack are able to come to the conclusion that they cannot take that chance. When Jill gets there, the mustache grunts that they'll see how things work out. Michael and Jack are amazed that he is indicating a partnership. Michael Jack. You just missed Jack Abbott, Victor informs Nikki when she arrives later. Jill is scheduled to arrive tomorrow, she finds out. Nikki informs her husband that she met Lauren, who expresses worry about Michael's employment with Kane. Victor is right to assume that Fenmore is really concerned about Michael's return. Is that true? Asks Nikki. Nikki Victor. Nikki says he's difficult, kisses Victor, and trots away after Victor plays dumb with her. Victor then answers Jack's phone and asks if Michael's worries caused him to change his mind. The Newman disconnects and reassures him that everything is proceeding as planned. The last scenes when Michael sees Lauren at society, he questions why she has a sparkle in her eye. According to his wife, it's only love. She moves aside to answer a call from Nikki, who claims Victor is ignoring her, as they continue their small conversation about wedding dresses. However, she believes Lauren is correct and that Michael and Victor are having an affair. Lauren goes back to her husband and challenges him. You have deceived me once more. Although Michael acknowledges that he spoke with Victor once more, he maintains that it is irrelevant because Kane fired him. Lauren makes him admit that he would have been working for Victor again if Kane hadn't fired him. This never ends, she hisses and leaves. Lauren Michael YNR Claire sobs and spills her coffee at Crimson Lights as she mentally reenacts the scenario with Kyle in the park. Kyle instructs Audra to keep walking in the park. Audra mocks him by saying that it wouldn't be pleasant for her to abandon him in his suffering. She snarks about him and Claire not getting back together while sitting next to him. Kyle retorts that she is unemployed and without Nate. Who created this drama is up for discussion. Kyle possessed free will, as Audra notes. She believes Victor was correct all along about him. Audra is told by Kyle that she is poison. She reminds him that he couldn't stop kissing her and nudges him that he's fascinated with her. Kyle goes on a tirade over her delusion that she is unstoppable. Holden, Nate, and he have moved on after having her. Yeah, to your would-be wifey, says Audra, grinning. Audra realizes abruptly that she was successful in demonstrating Kyle's unworthiness of Claire's affection. Victor ought to provide her with the prize he promised. Standing over her, Kyle threatens to do whatever it takes to bring her down if she attempts to make money off of the harm she did. She will regret ever having met him. Michael Baldwin's voice carried a restrained tension as he sat across from his former employer in Victor Newman's office, explaining the bitter unraveling of his dealings with Kane Ashby, insisting Kane was simply looking for a compliant yes man and that he, Michael, would never stoop to such desperation, pointing out that if Kane thought this was a clever play, then truly the game is afoot, reminding Victor that strategy and patience were their weapons, not Kane's hollow promises, but... Before Victor could deliver one of his patented grunts of disapproval, Michael froze at the sound of footsteps, his jaw tightening when Jack Abbott strode in, and the sight astonished Baldwin because Jack, the eternal adversary of Victor, carried no smug grin today but a cautious seriousness, declaring that their long-standing animosity had been overshadowed by a far greater threat, Kane's schemes, and though Victor immediately sniffed in skepticism, unwilling to declare himself an ally of Jack Abbott, Jack turned Victor's reluctance into a challenge, urging him to rely on Michael's advice, pointing out that Baldwin had weathered betrayals on both sides and understood the stakes better than anyone, but Victor's narrowed eyes revealed his lack of faith, his doubt clear as crystal, for Victor Newman never forgot a betrayal, never dismissed disloyalty lightly, and yet, both Baldwin and Jack pressed their case, insisting that the only path forward in this tangled battlefield of loyalties and hidden agendas was an uneasy cooperation. You don't have to trust me, Victor, Jack argued coolly, you just have to recognize the enemy standing in front of you, and right now, that's Kane, adding fuel to the fire when he casually revealed that Jill would be returning to town tomorrow, and he was certain her presence would be pivotal in cornering Kane, though Victor and Michael exchanged wary glances, reminding Jack of Jill's history of affection for Kane, warning that blood ties and loyalties could blind her. But Jack countered that Jill didn't yet understand the true nature of Ashby's intentions, that she would stall him, force him to wait, and in that delay their advantage would blossom, but Victor barked that Kane was already gaining ground, noting Chance's death had occurred on Jill's property, giving Kane a foothold that was already too deep, and Michael's face fell with worry, warning that if Jill turned her back on Kane, isolating him, it could drive Kane into desperate measures, but Victor's voice rumbled like thunder as he clarified his position, that Kane's isolation would not break their plan but rather reveal his mistakes, leaving him vulnerable, and for the first time Jack stared at Victor, startled, asking whether the great mustache was truly reconsidering an alliance, though Victor remained inscrutable, leaving the question hanging, until the door slammed shut behind Jack and Michael knew only time would tell, and yet across town the chaos of Newman family politics was mirrored by Kyle Abbott's unraveling emotions in the park as he continued to badger Claire Newman about spending time with Holden Novak, calling him a slick player, accusing her of falling into a trap, his sneering question of "what's not like that," only earning Claire's sharp retort that her choices were none of his business, their argument spiraling with each exchange until Claire mocked him over his escapades with Audra in France, swatting away his insinuations that Holden had ulterior motives, while Kyle fumed with jealousy, taunting her with sarcastic applause. "Excellent work, Claire, Victor would be extremely pleased with you." And Claire fired back that Kyle was only trying to guilt her for seeking her own independence, recounting yet again her years of suffocating expectations and declaring Holden her friend, someone who allowed her to live and explore without constant criticism. But Kyle's plaintive, "Why can't you do that with me?" fell flat, leaving him sounding desperate and out of touch, Claire asserting firmly that she needed to live outside of his shadow, the tension erupting just as Audra materialized. Watching with satisfaction as Claire snapped at Kyle for lying about his French adventures, calling him hypocritical and telling him to back off, her accusations of jealousy wounding him even as he raised his voice, demanding she see through Holden's charm, reminding her of her naivete, but Claire mocked his paranoia. "Do you know how you sound right now?" And when he shouted about her blindness, she finally stormed away, leaving Audra to step in with her ever-present smirk, twisting the knife as she consoled and mocked him in equal measure, reveling in the cracks forming between Kyle and Claire, while elsewhere at Crimson Lights, Lauren Fenmore cornered Nikki Newman with her own suspicions, demanding her help, confiding her worries about Kane's recent job offer to Michael, convinced Ashby's intention was to manipulate and eventually destroy Baldwin, and though Nikki pressed for proof, Lauren insisted she could read her husband like a book, and as lies had betrayed him, Nikki hesitating as Lauren railed that Victor's brutality toward Michael mirrored his treatment of Adam and Nick, calling Baldwin practically a third son, pointing out that Nikki's refusal to intervene made her complicit in Victor's cruelty, and though Nikki protested, admitting she shared Lauren's affection for Michael and wished Victor could let go of his vendetta against Jack, Lauren's desperation boiled over, her voice trembling as she begged Nikki to investigate, to uncover the truth before Kane trapped Michael forever, but Nikki could only sigh, admitting that the stubbornness of Victor and Jack was their eternal curse, invoking the D word, destiny, as if they were condemned to repeat the same cycles, but Lauren wasn't placated, insisting she was exhausted and would not stand idly by, and as if destiny itself were pulling strings. Back in Victor's office, Michael pushed the conversation forward, suggesting that Kane's grandiose promises about AI projects were more fantasy than reality, just empty smoke, though Victor and Jack reluctantly admitted they couldn't risk underestimating him. Deciding Jill's arrival would be the ultimate test, Victor grunting that time would reveal whether Jill chose to support them or Kane, and Michael and Jack exchanged stunned glances as they realized Victor's words hinted at a partnership in all but name, the lines between ally and enemy blurring, a truth underlined later when Nikki returned and Victor casually informed her that she had just missed Jack Abbott, dropping the tidbit that Jill would arrive tomorrow, while Nikki shared her meeting with Lauren, pressing Victor about Michael's involvement with Kane, but Victor deflected, playing dumb as only he could, and Nikki, exasperated, kissed him before leaving, her suspicion lingering, while Victor immediately picked up Jack's call, taunting him about Michael's fears, hinting once again at a shared course, a plan in motion, and later still Michael reunited with Lauren at Society, where her radiant smile unnerved him, her sparkle explained away as nothing more than love, though it dimmed when Nikki called to reveal that Victor was ignoring her questions, confirming Lauren's deepest fears that Michael was back in Victor's orbit, and when she confronted her husband, he confessed reluctantly that he had indeed spoken with Victor, claiming Kane had already fired him, but Lauren was unsparing, demanding the truth, forcing him to admit that had Kane not fired him, he might well have gone back to work for Victor. And Lauren's fury erupted. "This never ends," she hissed before storming out, leaving Michael hollow, and meanwhile Claire nursed a coffee at Crimson Lights, tears slipping as she relived Kyle's harsh accusations, while back in the park Kyle snapped at Audra to keep walking, only for her to slide onto the bench beside him, needling him about his failures with Claire, mocking his lack of career, his loss of Nate, smirking that Victor had been right about him all along, and when Kyle spat that she was poison, Audra laughed, reminding him that he had kissed her, that he was fascinated by her, twisting his guilt until Kyle lashed out, accusing her of delusions of grandeur, insisting men like Holden, Nate, and himself had all walked away from her, but Audra only smirked wider, reminding him he still longed for Claire, calling herself successful for exposing his unworthiness, declaring that Victor owed her the prize he promised, while Kyle loomed over her, threatening with venom that if she tried to profit from the chaos she created, he would make her regret ever crossing his path, promising that her manipulations had lit a fire he would never extinguish until she was ruined. And as the night settled in Genoa City, the threads of Victor, Jack, Michael, Jill, Kyle, Claire, Audra, and Kane wove tighter, a storm of betrayal, alliances, and jealousy that promised the next move would not simply change the game, it would destroy it. The following morning arrived with a tension that seemed to hang in the air like a storm cloud over Genoa City, because everyone knew Jill Abbott was returning, and her presence always ignited drama no matter how carefully others tried to control the narrative, and in Victor Newman's office, Michael Baldwin adjusted his tie nervously as Victor leaned back in his chair, studying him with that impenetrable stare, the kind that made even Baldwin, who had defended hardened criminals and navigated ruthless corporate sharks, feel like prey under the mustache's scrutiny, and Victor reminded him curtly that Kane Ashby's entire scheme relied not just on technology but on loyalty, that his hunger for a yes man had blinded him to the truth that no empire could be built on servitude, and Jack Abbott strolled in at that moment, uninvited as always, tossing off a casual "Good morning, gentlemen," that carried all the arrogance of a man who knew he didn't belong in Victor's space but relished every second of it anyway, and the sparring began immediately, Victor questioning Jack's motives, Jack countering with reminders that Kane was the bigger threat, Michael caught in the middle like a chess piece being shoved from one side to the other, until finally Jack dropped the bomb. Jill's jet had landed, she would be walking into this office within the hour, and both men had better prepare themselves because she was about to tip the scales in a way neither expected, and Victor gave one of his trademark grunts, muttering that Jill's loyalties could never be trusted, that she always straddled the line between Abbott and Chancellor, her heart too entangled with Kane to see clearly, but Jack, ever the strategist, reminded him that Jill's ego was her Achilles heel, and if Kane believed he had secured her loyalty, then proving her wrong, showing her he was using her, could push her into their camp, and Michael, pacing by the window, muttered that this was a dangerous gamble, because if Jill felt cornered, she could double down on Kane out of stubbornness rather than admit her mistake, and Victor growled that in chess, sacrifices were inevitable, and sometimes a pawn had to fall to protect the king, his metaphor leaving Jack irritated, reminding Victor that Jill was hardly a pawn, she was more like a queen, unpredictable and devastating if underestimated, and before their bickering could escalate further, the door opened and Jill herself swept in, all fire and authority, declaring, "Well, isn't this cozy? The great Victor Newman, my son-in-law's confidant, and Jack Abbott, who somehow thinks he belongs in this room," and Michael stepped forward quickly, attempting to calm her, but Jill waved him off, her sharp eyes scanning the room, instantly realizing that whatever Victor and Jack had been cooking up, it involved Kane, and her defenses rose like steel walls.